Back in the book segment tonight, a follow-up to my Talking Points memo on why some African Americans are failing in the marketplace. It's mostly about poor education, fractured families, and a culture that does not prepare folks to compete in the competitive marketplace. To make that point, I compared African Americans to Asian Americans. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, unemployment for Asians, 4.5%, 11.4% for blacks, 5.3% for whites. Out of wedlock births, 17% for Asians, 29% for whites, a whopping 72% for blacks. There's no question poverty is driven by lack of education, poor supervision of children, and fractured families. There's now a person who dissents from my analysis, Tina Nguyen from the website Mediaite. And you say? I say that your assertion statistically is correct, but when you break it down from that large aggregate number, it's completely different. While it's true that as a whole, the Asian American community has succeeded in terms of education and income, once you break that down among ethnic groups, it paints a very different picture. Yeah, but it doesn't really matter because the Census Bureau, which is all of these groups are put together for, Hispanic Americans come from many, many different countries and cultures, all right? But they're all Hispanic Americans. Now, the fact of the matter is that Asian Americans have succeeded in the USA better than any other minority group. Their per capita income is higher. Their education is higher. Their family structure is more intact. So I'm saying there's no white privilege. There must be Asian privilege because the Asians are at the top of the chart and the African Americans are at the bottom of the chart. Right, but that's too high a level of distinction to make any sort of meaningful conclusion of that, just like based on the actual Asian American statistics. Yes, and statistics tell the story. Statistics tell part of the story, Bill. But once you break down the statistics in my article, I make a distinction between people who immigrated to the United States for one reason, for instance. But you can always make that decision. Look, for African Americans, you have Caribbean blacks, you have West African blacks, South African blacks. And if you look in the census, the distinction is also there as well. That's right. But we're talking about an overall problem. And education is the key. And to have a strong, stable home life that encourages education, as in many, many Asian American homes, you have the kids have a big advantage. So I'm saying the culture, the gangster rappers and all of this stuff that is permeating big time into the African American precincts, especially the poorer ones, is harming them, and they have to change the culture. At the same time, I think comparing that culture to Asian American culture is, to use a overused cliche, but I think it fits in this case, it's comparing apples to oranges. We're all Americans. We're all Americans, and if you have a certain group that's prospering, you should learn from that group and what that group does well. But if you're assuming that African Americans have a shared cultural value and you look at the same at Asian Americans, then why is it that a large percentage of the Asian population is not succeeding by the metrics that you provide? But they are succeeding because the per capita income is way, way up among the whole group. You can always take individuals, some fail and some succeed. It's not individuals, though. It's actually, you can actually break this down by ethnicity. For instance, Koreans, Japanese, Chinese Americans, they have college graduation rates above 50%. However, if you look at people who generally are refugees from Southeast Asian wars, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Hmong, their college graduation rates plummet. Are lower, but much lower. The aggregate you have to go with, because the groups that you mentioned that succeed, they have one thing in common. They keep the families together. Then why is it that a huge segment of the Asian American population is not? It isn't huge because the stats are so overwhelmingly successful. That's what I'm trying to get to you. Do you believe that culture is a poverty driver? I think that there are lots of factors playing into poverty. But home? Home, absolutely. Out of wedlock birth? Absolutely. Okay. So I'm telling you that that's what has to change in the African American community in order for it to rise up the way that Asian Americans are. We appreciate you coming in. Go ahead, last word. No, I don't believe that comparing Asian Americans to African Americans makes any sort of meaningful. We respect that, but I have to go with the Census Bureau. Fact or tip of the day. And I respect you having me on, Mr. Roberts. Sure, sure. It's nice to see you.